Chapter 4 discusses the social welfare policy in the 19th century, but mainly focuses on the years of 1789 through 1902. Between the inception of the Republic in 1789 and the Civil War in 1861, Americans devoted mass energy to problems of poverty, street children, orphans, mental illness, crime, illiteracy, and alcoholism, and developed policies concerning Native Americans, Spanish-speaking persons, and African Americans after the Civil War. Three developments posed enormous challenges to the new nation during the 19th century. The rapid settlement of the frontier, which occurred over the first 80 years of the century, the Civil War, which occurred in the middle of the century, and the development of an industrialized system, primarily during and after the Civil War. And Americans' responses to these three events can be understood as a lost opportunity for social reform. In 1803, Thomas Jefferson opened up new doors for expansion by purchasing the Louisiana Territory from the French. Although with this new amount of land available for Americans to settle on, many new incoming immigrants settled in the overpopulated cities of New England. These cities increasingly became repositories for immigrants from Ireland and Germany. Between 1814 and 1815, nearly 1 million impoverished Irish citizens entered the United States. This was followed by another 1.2 million Irish immigrants 7 years after the disastrous potato famine of 1845 to 1849. With the growing population due to immigration, shantytowns and tenements were constructed in these cities. They didn't meet health codes due to open sewers and poor sanitation, and these communities gave rise to prostitution, gambling, street banging, and excessive drinking. With all of these events taking place due to increase in population, widespread unemployment causes the major recessions in 1819, 1833, 1837, and 1857, where at one point one-fifth of the entire population in New York received welfare benefits in Alamo houses or outdoor soup kitchens. Although the Irish are a big part of the vulnerable population in the 19th century, other groups are majorly affected as well. Children are left on the streets to fend for themselves and have to seek refuge in orphanages, but when they turn 16, they are back on their own once more. Women have always been seen as an unequal, and in the 19th century, very brave women stepped up for their rights. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton formed the first women's suffrage conference in Seneca Falls, New York, and the rally became an annual event until women gained equal rights in 1920 with the ratification of the 19th Amendment. After Andrew Jackson became president in 1829 through 1839, he had a goal in mind to expand the U.S., but by doing so, the elimination of the Native Americans had to be done. Native Americans west of the Mississippi were forced from their homes and led to what we now know as Kansas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma by walking the Trail of Tears. Thousands died on this journey by facing harsh winters, no shelter, starvation, and sickness, and to this day is one of America's most shamed actions to commit. After the Civil War, the African Americans were freed by the 13th Amendment and given rights with the 14th and 15th Amendments. These nearly 3 million new freed African Americans needed help settling in with the new lifestyle, and the Freedmen's Bureau helped do just that for about 40,000. Freed slaves were still left to wander in a racist society despite their newly granted freedoms with the new amendments. Mental illness also played a major role in social policy. During the 19th century, many of the mentally ill were treated as prisoners and sanctioned with criminals in state penitentiaries. Dorothea Dix, an advocate for the mentally ill, wanted to change this and seek rights for these people to be treated with care performing mental hospitals. The 19th century was full of social inequalities, but during this time, a lot of equality was sought through reform changes. Immigration overpopulated areas, which increased poverty, but was later able to overcome in the mid-20th century. Children were put in schools, women were given equal rights, and the mentally ill were treated with more respect and bedside manner. The 19th century faced many social challenges due to expansion, the Civil War, and the Industrial Period, but in the end, change was made and our history was established because of these harsh times.